One of the most distressing images to come out of the media this week was the news of the fire in Dhaka in Bangladesh, collapse of a building in which so many Bangladeshis work and toil in the clothing industry. What was shocking about it was not only the loss of life, but the fact that the owner had been warned that the building had cracks. And then what emerges afterwards is the treatment of those who work in the clothing industry. Those who are working to create the beautiful fashion designer clothes that so many of us wear across the Western world. And what emerges, of course, then, is the treatment of these workers, often working in distressing, awful conditions and being paid with minimal wages, subsistence kind of living. And it begs the question, and it gets us to think about, how do we treat workers? How do we treat other people? And that, I'd suggest to you, is exactly what our parasha is looking at, the first of the double feature of this week, which is the last two parashiot of the book of Vayikra, namely Bahar and Bechukotai. Bahar offers a radical vision. It's a vision of the good society. It's a vision of the way that society should operate, how we should treat other people. Bahar, in many ways, was revolutionary, for it suggests a welfare type of society, a society in which those who are disadvantaged are given a hand up. And that's particularly, if one looks at the psukim, 3 times there is a particular phrase that appears, and that is, Ki yamuch achicha umachar me'achuzato. When your brother falls low, in other words, your brother falls on hard times, it says, V'hechezakta bo. Give him a hand up. Give her a hand up. Help her or him to maintain their dignity in the face of poverty, in the face of unemployment, when they lose a job, when they lose their home. Help them stand up. And even more important, suggests Rashi, V'hechezakta, means don't let them collapse completely. Strengthen them while they are still standing. It's a lot easier to help a person while they are suffering the initial forms of loss, of financial loss, or when the business begins to fail, than to help a person out of bankruptcy and out of the humiliation and the indignity that they may be suffering at that time. Very much the laws of Shemitah and Yovel, the laws of the land resting in its 7th year, land being returned in terms of Yovel to its original owners, was also about trying to bridge that gap between the rich and the poor. The enormous gap we know it is growing in the world today, in societies like Australia and in Israel, certainly in America, where there is this large gap. And part of the laws of Yovel and of the Shemitah were right here said to us a way of rectifying it and a way of trying to close that gap. So if there is one message that you take away from this week's parasha, let your brother, let your fellow human being, certainly let your fellow Jew, lead a life of dignity and as comfortable as possible, and you help support them, help sustain that lifestyle. Let them live as you would like to live. Shabbat Shalom.